Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Turning all of our antennas towards insurgents.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
All right, how you doing? Fade to Black. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. For you. God put this on the earth for us. So we could be free. How you doing? Fade to Black. Tuesday, March 3rd. 62 days into the new year, 303 days left. We are live from the truthfunders.com studios in Burbank, California. Cold, rainy, wet Burbank. Truth Funders, do you have a book, an expedition, an invention, or paranormal documentary you need to get funded? Go to truthfunders.com. Truth Funders, the #1 source of backing your project into the fringe. www.truthfunders.com. Go there right now. Go support our community. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all of the new listeners coming in for the first time tonight. This is Fade to Black. Everybody listening across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church, for the Game Changer Network. Monday, March 9th, KGRA in the house. So excited. Big salute to the proud men and women in uniform all around the world fighting the good fight for us. For without them, there is no me. There is no you, there is no us, and you cannot hear me right now. You got a complaint? Go to North Korea. They're hiring. Tonight, on Fade to Black, Linda Moulton Howe will be joining us. All the breaking UFO news, fringe, paranormal. So excited. Linda Moulton Howe at the bottom of the hour. Hey, did you guys check out the Fader mugs? Everybody go check those out. T-shirts, did you guys see those today? Go to faders.org, www.faders.org. Become a fader. Become a fader-naut. Every single day, I start the show. I'm in Twitter. I'm hanging out. By the way, follow us on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. Come on over. Hang out in the sandbox. That's what you want to do. We're going to have a new, what do we do with KGRA this Monday? Are we hashtagging twice? I didn't even talk to Race about that. Does he have a feed over there? Does he do, is he prepared for the onslaught? Does he have any clue? Oh man, because I'm assuming that's hashtag KGRA. I guess we'll do both. 2 sandboxes. All right. Welcome to everybody that's over in the speaker sandbox too, by the way. Hello, everybody. And I'll jump in at the break and come say hello over there. Where am I? Studio Dome, SD1 tweeters. Yes, or tweeters. Did I just say tweeters? SD1 Bluetooth speakers. They look like a tweeter. They look like a tweeter you would have put in like your car back in high school. But go right now. You got to get one of these. Promo code Jimmy is all you got to do. That's for the Fader Knots. Get $40 off, $59.99, free shipping. And I got to tell you, you'll never hear the show the same way again, or anything that, for that matter, that you listen to your iPhone, your iPad, your laptop. Amazing speaker. Just go over to jimmychurchradio.com. Just click on the link. It's right there. All right. Tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. I'm so fired up. She's going to be at Contact in the Desert, May 29th through the 31st out in Joshua Tree. Get yourself some free passes. All you got to do is enter the contest. Go to jimmychurchradio.com, click, go and enter. We're going to draw 5 more names this Thursday, Fader night / Bob Davis night. And so 5 more names are going to be drawn. You do want to come and hang out with us. Oh, by the way, I just right before the show, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it live right now. I'm in the mood. We just booked Giorgio Tsoukalos. He's going to be with us in 2 weeks. He's out filming in some expedition in the Himalayas right now. But when he gets back, he's right here with us. And he is going to be at Contact in the Desert. And we'll be broadcasting there Friday night. That's going to be amazing. And what's so amazing about it is because we're going to do the same thing that we did last year, which is we're going to just bring in everybody. We're going to bring in everybody. Last year we had we ran out of time last year. This year we're going to do everything that we can. We'll probably have 12 or 14 guests on the show. We're going to broadcast live. There's going to be 200 or 300 people in the studio audience. Don't you want to be one of them? I want to meet everybody. And you can't win unless you enter the contest. So just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the link for contest in the Contact in the Desert. It'll take you over to the landing page. Right there, it'll say Jimmy Church. You'll know you're at the right spot. Just go and do it. Get it done. Because I want to call your name. Last week, who won last week? It was Eric James, Beth DeLapp, Status Unknown, by the way, won last week. Chuck Rao, Scott Hunt. Those were the 5 winners from last week. They're going to Contact in the Desert, and I know you want to go too, okay? Go and enter. And nothing makes me happier than when I get an email. What? I won. I can't believe it. Really? Yes, okay? And the only way I can feel good about that is if you enter and I call your name next week or this Thursday. All right? Tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. Tomorrow night, Nick Pope, by the way, will be joining us. We're going to be talking Rendlesham tonight with Linda Moulton Howe, John Burroughs, and his press release that he did on Earth Files. Tomorrow night, Nick Pope, Rendlesham, and everything that he has done over in the UK. We'll be doing that tomorrow night. Very excited. And then Thursday night, we're going to do a twofer. It'll be Fader Night / Dr. Robert Davis. And I'm excited. It's we got a great week here. Man, last night, whoa. Buff Perry. Got an email today from a bunch of people going, dude, I watched Buff's documentary last night. Yeah, I did the same thing. So there you go. All right, follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio throughout the show. You got to pierce the veil of the producers here. That's the whole secret. You got to make the email good. You can do Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. You can also go over to the website, go to the contact page, and email us through there where we use non-NSA specially encrypted servers. And I'm serious. We do, I think. I'm pretty sure. If you have any questions tonight for Linda, it's hashtag F2BQ. That's the column. Is the new channel going to be broadcasted on your homepage still? That just came in from Michael Anderson. See, that's what you do. If you got a question for me, pop it in right there. Hashtag F2BQ. Michael Anderson just did. And he's saying, is the new channel going to be... Nothing is changing as far as everything that is in place stays in place. Okay, we're syndicating now through on KGRA, and that's another audience. And all of, if you want to go to KGRA and listen, you can do that. Twitter, the website, Spreaker, TuneIn, everything stays the same. The times, the days, the dates, nothing changes. Okay, and I am so fired up about KGRA, talking to Race today and making plans and getting, the family that's over there. It's the same vibe that we have over here. And that's what's so cool. It's just two families. It's like the Brady Bunch, if you think about it, and we're just moving in together. Make room. That's what it is. And I am just so excited. I can't wait for Monday night and KGRA. So there you go. Nothing changes. We have a press release that is prepped. We'll get that out tomorrow. And we were going to do it today, but we had a busy day today. But now KGRA, like it or not, they're broadcasting now from Contact in the Desert. How cool is that, man? I'm just so fired up. I'm sitting here drinking out of my Lynn Lewis Elvis coffee mug. I stopped doing it because I didn't want to damage it. It's such a cool mug. But just to show you how good Elvis tastes. You gotta love it. Last night, I wanted to say that it was a Sunday night. We had friends over at Casa Day Church. And you know how it is. All that stuff gets posted on Facebook, and, I lose control, and I can't help it. But I just want to, share the moment. But there on the table, if you look really close, are the Space Boy shot glasses. They're right there on the table. And I was going to do it. I thought, no, it just sends the wrong message that that's what we do all the time. But anyway, if you look really close, you'll see those Space Boy shot glasses. All right. Call-in number tonight with Linda, if we can get around to it. It's going to be a busy night, but I know everybody wants to chat with Linda. 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. Now, for all of the listeners that are new to the show today, every day there's a few hundred more, every single day. I get that. I do. This is an open-ended conversation, long-form conversation show. You're going to come in tonight. You're going to hang out. You're going to snuggle up to your speakers. You're going to drink what you drink. You're going to smoke what you smoke. And you're going to listen. And you're going to learn. And what you're going to participate in, whether it's through Twitter, over at Spreaker, or one of the chat rooms that's going on right now for Fade to Black, you're going to hang out with people that think just like you, and you're going to see pictures, you're going to go through this and images, that, and it's a real-time interactive show, and you're just going to get sucked in, just like years gone past with all of those late-night radio shows, those smoky, deep, dark, late-night radio shows. That's what goes on here. Tonight with Linda Moulton Howe, it's going to be exactly that. Last night with Buck Perry, wow. And that's what I enjoyed growing up. And that's what we do here. So for all of you new listeners, just get comfortable. This isn't some zany show with sound effects and all of no, this is intelligence trying to happen. All right, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network, and I'll say it again, Monday, March 9th, KGRA in the house. So fired up, so excited, big things going on. Finally, by the way, Hangar 1 is going to premiere. Now it's April 1st. So we'll get that this month, too. A bunch of stuff is going on in real time. I hope you're along for the ride. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. Tomorrow night, Nick Pope. Thursday night, Fader Night / Dr. Robert Davis. I'll be back right after this. Do not touch that mouse.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National tax experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. She'll be with us at the bottom of the hour. Tomorrow night, Nick Pope. Thursday, it's a twofer. Fader Night / Dr. Robert Davis will be with us. All right, let's do it. Let's get cracking. Let's get to the news that you know nothing about. Except for this. This has been all over the news today. Shocking. A Russian lawyer for Edward Snowden said today the fugitive former U.S. spy agency contractor who leaked details of the government's mass surveillance programs was working with American and German lawyers to return home. Oh, yeah. Anatoly Kucherina, I'm not making that up, Kucherina, who has links to the Kremlin, was speaking at a news conference to present a book he has written about his client. And Moscow granted Snowden asylum in 2013, straining already tense ties with Washington. I'm wondering about this, and there's always another story behind the story. You got to peel back that layer. And he was quoted as saying today, "I won't keep it secret that he wants to return back home. And we are doing everything possible now to solve this issue. There is a group of U.S. lawyers. There is also a group of German lawyers, and I'm dealing with it on the Russian side. The United States wants Snowden to stand trial for leaking extensive secrets of electronic surveillance programs by the National Security Agency, and Russia has repeatedly refused to extradite him. Snowden has said in the past he would like to return home if he was assured he would be given a fair trial." I'm just suspecting. My vibe, it's just not that good over there. It ain't that good. How bad is it if you want to get out and go back to the United States and face a federal trial for that stuff? I mean, how bad is it? You can only eat so much borscht, I'm telling you, red or white, hot or cold. New revelations about earthquake dangers have shaken the future of California's Diablo Canyon nukes. In a rare move, Washington, D.C.'s federal U.S. Court of Appeals will hear a landmark challenge to their continued operation. That's right. The suit says Diablo's owners illegally conspired with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, to weaken seismic standards. No joke. Now, this is a big victory, says Damon Moglin from Friends of the Earth. The public has a right to know that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and Pacific Gas and Electric won't admit hundreds of thousands of people are put at immediate risk by earthquake dangers at Diablo Canyon. Diablo is vulnerable on state and federal water quality regulations, economic concerns, and more. Citizen activism has also shut operating reactors at Humboldt, Rancho Seco, and San Onofre. Now, I'm telling you right now, I used to drive by San Onofre at least twice, maybe 4 times a week on the way to San Diego and coming back. And you're just that, and coming off of earthquakes and other things here. What I mean by that is, when I say other things, aftershocks. It's just a constant thing that goes on here in Southern California. And you look at these nuclear plants, and you just know a bad thing could happen at the drop of a hat. This is not the state, any state really, to have nuclear plants. You can't. There's a fault that runs under everything. California's 2 remaining reactors, there's only 2 left, are surrounded by more than a dozen seismic fault lines. The shoreline fault runs within 600 to 700 yards of the Diablo cores. This is no joke. Now, it's 45 miles from the San Andreas Fault. Now, think about that for a second. We just don't need it. Shut it down. End of story. UFO hunter Street Cap 1 claims he has detected in a recent LASCO C3 photo a massive UFO with an intricate articulated design near our sun. The photograph was captured by the SOHO satellite in halo orbit around the Sun-Earth L1 gravitational balance point, from where it transmits back to Earth a continuous stream of near real-time data about solar activity used to predict space weather. Now, the alleged video of the UFO, it's not an alleged video, the alleged UFO in the video is about the size of the moon. And you have to look at it. It looks like something out of Star Wars. It's got things on it. It doesn't look like an asteroid. You have to see it. The video's crazy. Street Cap 1. Go check them out on YouTube. Amazing video. The Department of Homeland Security won't run out of money anytime soon. The House cleared legislation today that will keep the agency operating through the end of September after a standoff last week threatened to shutter the agency and furlough thousands of workers. The 257 to 167 vote sends the bill to President Barack Obama for his signature. Republican House Speaker John Boehner, who rarely casts votes, backed the bill, along with his top lieutenants. A majority of the House Republicans did oppose the bill. Just 75 GOP lawmakers joined with 182 Democrats to push it across the finish line today. Kai, I'm not going to comment. Hey, did everybody, are you guys checking out, why would Hillary Clinton use a private email while working for the government? Why, I held off doing that news story today because it's a big bowl of wrong. A big, steaming, heaping bowl of wrong. Now, we have to go back and chase down and ask for the backups of all of the email exchanges. We have to do that, and we have to depend on them to be straight. How does that work? Is that even legal? I'm just saying. Anyway, moving on. Has the white city of the monkey god been found after 500 years? A team hunting for the legendary lost city of Ciudad Blanca in the Honduras has made a dramatic discovery of untouched ruins deep in the jungle that are thought to be thousands of years old. This is according to National Geographic, Nat Geo, one of my favorite channels. Researchers believe the complex of plazas, mounds, a pyramid, and dozens of artifacts belong to a civilization which was booming thousands of years ago and then vanished without a trace. It prompts the tantalizing possibility that we have found the lost civilization known as the White city, which has been the subject of local rumors among tribespeople and Spanish explorers forever. Some people call it the White City of Gold, after ancient texts described ivory temples filled with treasure. And Western explorers first made reference to it from Conquistador Hernando Cortez to King Charles V of Spain as far back as 1526. Since then, countless researchers and adventurers have gone to the Honduras looking for this. It's all overgrown. The jungle has overtaken everything. And it just reminds me of like Indiana Jones. I want to go. I really do. But that jungle will defeat you. Trust me. But it can't defeat a satellite. And that's exactly what has happened. One such adventurer even suggested that the city was, in fact, known as the White City of the Monkey God, and saw an ancient civilization worship a giant simian deity symbolized by a large statue. This is exciting stuff. Check this out. Where's my studio clock? I got a little time. I'm going to squeeze the rest of this in. Yes, chocolate cake helped capture Mexico's most wanted drug lord. This is one of those things you chalk up to. You just can't make it up. When authorities finally caught up last week with Servando Gomez Martinez, a.k.a. La Tuta, the top surviving leader of the Knights Templar cartel and the country's most wanted fugitive, they got him with chocolate cake. That's right. That was the dessert that his girlfriend, Maria Antonieta Luna Avalos, delivered to his hideout in the colonial town of Morelia on February 6th, which happened to be his 49th birthday. When authorities observed that errand, coupled with some shoddy spycraft by his hand-picked messenger, a federal police team was able to capture him in the pre-dawn hours of Friday without firing a shot. Chocolate cake. It'll work on me, too. That volcano cake. Oklahoma would become the first state to allow the execution of death row inmates using nitrogen gas. The House voted in Oklahoma 85-10 for the bill by the Oklahoma City Republican Representative Mike Christian, who began studying alternative methods after a botched lethal injection in the spring that led the U.S. Supreme Court to consider the constitutionality of Oklahoma's current 3-drug method. Christian said numerous studies have been conducted on nitrogen hypoxia, which is similar to what pilots at high altitudes can encounter when oxygen supplies diminish. He described the method as humane, painless, and easy to administer. A Department of Civil Rights investigation has concluded that, these are stats that boggle the mind. They have concluded that the Ferguson Police Department and the city's municipal court engaged in a pattern and practice of discrimination against African Americans, targeting them for traffic stops, use of force, and jail sentences, according to a U.S. law enforcement official briefed on the investigation. Tomorrow, everything is released. The probe is a result of an investigation ordered by Attorney General Eric Holder after the police shooting that killed Michael Brown last summer. Among the findings, and I hope you're sitting down, from 2012 to 2014, 85% of the people subject to vehicle stops by Ferguson police were African American. 85%. 90% of those who received citations were African American. 93% of the people arrested were black. This while 67% of the Ferguson population is African American. In 88% of the cases which the Ferguson police reported using force, it was against African Americans. During the period of 2012 to 2014, black drivers were twice as likely as white drivers to be searched during traffic stops, but 26% less likely to be found in possession of contraband. Blacks were more likely to be cited for minor infractions. 95% of the tickets for jaywalking, 95% of the tickets for jaywalkings were against African Americans. Also, 94% of all failure to comply charges were filed against black people. That, my friends, is wrong. That's all I'm going to say. Workers digging underneath a Paris supermarket have made an unsettling discovery. They found 200 skeletons. The grocery store called Monoprix was doing some renovations in January, and workers were removing an underground wall and discovered the bones. Researchers and archaeologists are conducting carbon dating and DNA testing, and it turns out it's they're guessing it's from a hospital of the Trinity that operated from the 12th century to around the 17th century. Archaeologists working at the site have found 8 common graves in an area which is 100 square meters, with 7 of the graves containing between 5 and 20 skeletons each, and another grave, 150 skeletons. The grouping suggests the facilities were using it to bury families together. And that's it. That's all the news you know nothing about. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network. Monday, March 9th, KGRA. I'm telling you, it's all good in the hood. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. When I come back after the break, Linda Moulton Howe will be with us. Do not touch that mouse. I'll be right back.
You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're of the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
KJCR.
JimmyChurchRadio.com. Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Linda Moulton Howe will be joining us. If you have any questions for myself or Linda, just follow us on Twitter, @JChurchRadio, hashtag F2BQ. Plug it in right there. There's already, look at that. There's a couple lined up and ready to go. You can shoot me an email to Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. You can also go over to the website and send us something direct there. Just make it good, make it smart, make it for Linda, and pierce the veil of the producers here. You will be successful, and then I'll read it on the air. And I am so fired up. We have Linda right here in the batter's box. Linda Moulton Howe is an Emmy award-winning TV producer, investigative reporter, and author who goes directly to the men and women at the forefront of science and environmental challenges and to firsthand eyewitnesses of high strangeness. Ms. Howe has received local, national, and international awards, including 3 regional Emmys and a national Emmy nomination. Linda has traveled throughout the United States, Canada, Brazil, England, Norway, Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Australia, Japan, Peru, Venezuela, Switzerland, France, Sweden, the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, Turkey, Yugoslavia, Mexico, and the Yucatan. And soon in May, back to Joshua Tree. She has been interviewed for Larry King Live, special about Area 51, Day and Date, CBS, Strange Universe, Fox, NBC's The Other Side, Montel Williams, Britain's Union Pictures, and the Learning Channel, and for NBC's The Mysterious Origins of Man. Linda continues to write, produce, and speak at national and international conferences, including Contact in the Desert this May out in Joshua Tree, California. And her very own earthfiles.com is one of the true treasures of the internet. I would like to welcome back our good friend, young, little Linda Moulton Howe. How are you, Linda?
Thank you, Jimmy Church.
Man, oh man, I had to take like 4 extra breaths.
Well, it is nice to be back with you on Fade to Black, and it is especially an important time because on February 22nd, I had been keeping an embargoed story until that day, and it was in collaboration with John Burroughs and his attorney, Pat Frasconia. And I had been reporting for a very long time about the efforts of John Burroughs just trying to get medical coverage from his military background. And we have reported over and over all of the blocks, including the United States Veterans Administration, telling Pat Frasconia, the attorney, that his medical records from 79 to 82 in RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge were classified, no details, and no release. And suddenly, in January of this year, 2015, for the very first time, they had a breakthrough. It was a notice that the U.S. Veterans Administration was going to now grant John Burroughs full medical benefits for injury in the line of duty at RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, December 26th and 28th, 1980. And I reported this at Earth Files in a 2-part report that I called Implications of John Burroughs' Full VA Medical Coverage from Injury Caused by what the UK says Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, and they use the acronym UAP instead of the way North America uses UFOs.
Right.
And that it was directly linked by inference that we can talk about tonight to radiation from a UAP at RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, December 1980. Well, those 2 parts went out with excerpts from a highly classified document, interviews with John and Pat about all of this, and the story was picked up by the Herald Tribune in Florida just about 3 days ago, and what is interesting, they did a headline that said, did the VA just admit UFOs are dangerous, ? And then today, March 3rd, the UK Mirror headlined in Great Britain, and I have it right in front of me.
Read it to me.
Yeah, here is the headline from the Mirror, and that's mainstream UK media. British UFO encounter, quote, gave me heart failure, close quote, says U.S. airman after military chiefs agree to pay his medical bills. So what, Jimmy, is behind all of this? We have to go back to 2011, and that was the year that John began suffering what's called atrial fibrillation. That's when the heart goes into irregular heartbeats and it can quiver. If you don't get a handle on AFib, as it's also known, you can get blood clots, you can have strokes, you can get heart failure. You basically are headed into serious heart disease.
Right.
That's when John Burroughs, having for 34 years by then, knew that he had 2 encounters with lights in England. And what is so interesting is that John has never, ever been able to recall the details. It has been the people outside, the military people. Woodbridge, Bentwaters, RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge was NATO's largest base in Europe in 1980. And we now know that there were nukes on both sides, underground, on the Woodbridge side and the Bentwater side. So the reason I bring that up is the security on that base was huge, and it was intense. And when lights started being reported from what is called the East Gate on the night of December 26th at around midnight, the call went out to the Central Security Command about these lights, and there was a discussion about what to do. And without going into a lot of details tonight, we'll just boil it down to 3 men became the team, and that was Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston. He was the senior, and he was very experienced with going out to airplane crashes, always carried a notebook. He was known for that. He would make drawings, he would do details on airplane crashes. So that's who was leading this team. The next two were John Burroughs, then young, an airman first class, and an airman, Ed Kovansak. And those three are under a command decision that they are to leave the RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge base and that they are to go into Rendlesham Forest, which parallels along where the big base was. And that's where the lights were being reported. They were being called and compared to things like Christmas tree lights, meaning they were yellow and red and blue and green. And this was a decision that the military had to make because Rendlesham is civilian UK. It is not under either the U.S. or the British.
Yeah, it's on the other side of the fence.
And this is important because that means military have to make a decision about whether they are going to risk a problem on civilian land. So these three take off. They are in a pickup truck. They get to a part of the forest. They stop the truck. John Burroughs and Jim Penniston decides to leave Ed Kovansak, the youngest, at the truck, and he and John Burroughs start off in Rendlesham Forest. And we were there with the Ancient Aliens production in December of 2010 on the anniversary of this phenomena. And I can tell you, being in that forest at night and in broad sunlight, that even after that hurricane came through after 1980, it is back. It is a big, thick, tall forest. And the idea, as both Jim and John have always said, that anything could be moving rapidly through those thick, very close together, tall trees, has always amazed them, but that's what started happening. And when we were there with the Ancient Aliens production, Jim and John started to show us how they were moving through the forest that night. They were running, and there were berms. A berm is where the ground comes up and goes down and up and down in troughs. And they are running and falling and running and falling. It was a very adrenaline-rushing scene when, and this is the part, Jim Penniston says there was a blinding white flash of light, and that out of the flash of light appeared this black, glassy object that appeared to either be floating on light. He was not clear, but that's the object that Jim Penniston, he took out his notebook. He walked around this thing about 9 feet long, glassy, black, with red and blue and other colored lights moving under the surface of it like it was alive. And when he got around to the front right of the vertex of this black triangular-shaped object, there were raised symbols. He thought of Braille as he dragged his fingers along the surface, and he could feel the raised symbols that he didn't understand, but he said the whole craft seemed to be slightly warmer than the cold December air. And he's having this experience, and this is also where he had the download of zeros and ones in his head, the binary code that nobody knew about until, again, we were doing the Ancient Aliens production in Arizona in 2010 before the English trip, and Jim brought out this notebook and said, I want to show you something. And then that's when we saw the zeros and ones, and his story was that in the context of what was happening around this black glassy object, this was occurring in his head, and he was also getting some kind of communication that whatever was behind all of this were time travelers. And we can push that subject off for a while, because all this time, Jim Penniston has no idea what happened to John Burroughs.
Right.
He has no recall whatsoever, and yet he was the staff sergeant. He's the senior. It's a military mission out into the civilian ground.
Mm-hmm.
So Jim went into his, we'll call his experience. John Burroughs remembers things like white light, but he doesn't remember anything about what happened to him in the details in the forest, but jump now out to Central Security Command.
Right.
They were radioing through the whole decision at the East Gate to send this trio onto the civilian ground. And they had been having successful radio communication until the three get out into Rendlesham Forest, and then there was a 45-minute loss of communication. That's on the record books. And out of that December 26th event, later on, for reasons that are still not exactly clear, there was, I would put it in the rumor category, that one of the men, John Burroughs, and this was the phrase that was used, jumped up on a flying saucer in the woods. John doesn't have any memory, but I'm setting the scene that that was one of the so-called rumors on the base back then. And Ed Kovansak has basically has said he doesn't want to comment. So we don't know. We're concentrating on John Burroughs tonight.
Right.
And that was exposure number one. Exposure number two to John Burroughs comes 2 nights later on December 28th. That's the famous audio that the deputy base commander, Colonel Charles Halt, went with more than a dozen men out into the area to the same site area where there had been tripod marks left on the 26th in the ground. There was above background some radiation that was measured in the area around the embedded tripod marks in the forest floor. So now on the 28th, more lights, beams coming down. Colonel Halt has told me in an interview about when a beam came down within 3 feet of his shoes in the forest, he felt that that was some kind of an aggression. You can't say exactly that it was hostile, but it was so close, it scared him, and he considered it some form of aggression.
Right.
So, and that night, all of that recording, all of those men out with Geiger counters, light-alls for light. There was some testimony that there might have been some cameras, but it leads up that John Burroughs is back out there again on his own volition. He was not on duty that night. He felt drawn back. He wanted to go. And when he arrived, not on mission, Charles Halt, the colonel, apparently they had some dialogue about the fact that John Burroughs wanted to get close to where these lights were again, and they let him. But going along on John Burroughs' right side was a man, a sergeant, Adrian Bustinza. and Adrian Bustinza walking to the right of John Burroughs toward more lights out there in the field. It's Adrian Bustinza's testimony that suddenly red, orange, blue lights came down and engulfed, I believe was the word in transcripts years ago, engulfed John Burroughs in this light. And what is so interesting is that Adrian, these are words that he has used in the past. The lights pushed me to the ground. Now that is a very interesting sentence. Adrian doesn't really try to explain it except that he knew that he was going down to the ground. He didn't think he tripped. He thinks he was forced to the ground, but he's looking up as he goes down and says John Burroughs was engulfed by this red-orange light. That would be exposure number 2. John Burroughs, to this day, has no details about what happened in either of those nights. But this goes right to the heart of what is, in many ways, I think one of the biggest breakthroughs. I know his attorney, Pat Frasconia, when they put out the press release, he was emphasizing that this is the first time on record that a U.S. department, the Veterans Administration, is under the Department of Defense. So this means that this is a statement of benefits to a man injured in the line of duty, December 26th and 28th, 1980. That line of duty was to go into Rendlesham Forest to try to identify these colored lights. All of this phenomena ensues. And it was not long after December 28th, that second encounter for John Burroughs, he did not feel good. They never did any thorough medical examination of John Burroughs then. It was about a year later, and doctors someplace else found a heart murmur. Now, John would never have been in the U.S. Air Force and passed all those physicals if he had had a heart murmur.
That's right.
The heart murmur was definitely something post the exposures, plus he started having problems with his eyes. Others that were there and were involved in that third night have had problems with their eyes. And so now that we're now into that period of time when John was officially a U.S. airman in NATO's largest air base, collaboration between the UK, the US, where there were nuclear missiles underground on both sides of the base. This phenomena occurs over 72 hours. Many, many people were involved. We are really just touching on highlights to set the stage. That you jump to the 2011 when he starts having really serious heart problems. And when he goes to the Veterans Administration to request medical disability because the doctors are telling him he's going to have open heart surgery, and he is told that his records are classified. And that set in motion John Burroughs first getting Senator John Kyle of Arizona, who retired, and then Senator Kyle said, let's get Senator John McCain's office to help. And Senator John McCain's staff began working on this. And when you realize that for more than a year, Senator John McCain's office has really tried hard to get those critical medical records for John Burroughs from 79 to 82 RAF Bentwaters. And as of this date, as we are speaking on March 3rd, 2015, even with the granting of medical benefits for injury in the line of duty, and that was in context of exposure to a, quote, unidentified aerial phenomena that radiated a specific kind of radiation we'll talk about, he still does not have his medical records because They are still classified. And the question is, what is in those medical records of John Burroughs that our government has drawn a line in the sand that nobody is to see? Well, the whole other part of all of this breakthrough is that in 2006, for the first time, a Project Condign report, it's 460 pages long. It had been classified top secret, UK restricted. It gets quietly released from its strict classification. None of us knew about that happening directly in 2006. But Nick Pope, working in England, John Burroughs, Pat Frasconia, working in the United States, and all of these different facets, we become aware of this Project Condign. And for listeners who want to see some of the critical pages that tie directly to all of this and are the first words that we have seen that specifically say that and use the terms of RAF Bantwaters Woodbridge in Project Condign as being a relationship of radiation from UAPs, unidentified aerial craft, in which it can do damage to bodies and it can manipulate minds. That's what it says. And I have these pages at earthfiles.com. Listeners can go to February 27th, 2015, parts 1 and 2, all about everything that we're talking about. And you can see with your own eyes these extremely important pages. And one of them includes a document that was a letter. It's from what is called DI 55. That is an agency in the UK Ministry of Defense. And Jimmy, here is the date on what I'm going to read a sentence to you from. February 23rd, 1981.
Really? A month after. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. We're going all the way back. All of the denials over all of the decades that there was nothing to this, there was no defense significance, that it was all, what was it, for a long time, somebody in counterintelligence was pushing the lighthouse.
Yeah, the lighthouse. Yes.
When we were there with Ancient Aliens, we went right to one spot, and we were looking at and trying to videotape that lighthouse, that very same lighthouse. And for people who have heard that thrown out for 2 or 3 decades, it is like the tiniest needle point of light. I mean, the idea that anybody ever, and you know how people in counter-intel get away with those kinds of muddying waters.
Sure.
Is we don't have the ability to go over to England and do a reality check, right?
Right.
And depending upon what TV shows with what biases over the years reinforced a counterintelligence point of view, they would make that look like a larger light. And I can tell you from our firsthand experience, it was no large light. It was a tiny, tiny light. It could never have explained anything. So now...
Well, did you immediately, Linda, I just have to ask, Jimmy Church style, you just checked that right off the list, didn't you? You drew, that was off the list.
We wanted to know.
Right.
So, yeah, we went there to that spot with the express idea that while we were working in the television section that we would find and see and try to videotape if there was any kind of a lighthouse out there that would make any kind of a dent on the idea that it could be a lighthouse. And it's so preposterous that it makes you understand how so much of this over the years that we are being given counter-intel deflection so much of the time. Now, I have Project Condign in what is called Annex F, and they made this very difficult to get, let me tell you. But I have printed out the whole Annex F, and here is the important sentence. It's actually in many paragraphs, but here is what was written in this UK restricted, highly classified document related directly to everything we're talking about. It says, quote, "The well-reported Rendlesham Forest Bentwaters event is an example where it might be postulated that several observers were probably exposed to UAP radiation for longer than normal UAP sighting periods," close quote. And I'm sure that you and your audience would understand that a sentence written like that means that they have an entire database related to quote-unquote normal sighting periods for people exposed to unidentified aerial phenomena.
I mean, what else can it mean? You know, you read that and it doesn't say anything but what it says.
And when you read this whole document, I have the hot links inside of the Earth files. I've tried to make it as easy as possible because it's extremely difficult if you go to the UK archives. But if you go to Earth files, you go to these reports, everything is hot linked right to the entire, all of the related segments that make up the 460 pages in this Annex F as in Frank is, I've highlighted it so that you click on that and it'll take you right to Annex F. It is definitely worth the effort and the read. We're talking scientific document. We're not talking about something written for public consumption.
That's right.
It's very, very important. Now, let's just.
Oh, well, let me jump in for the audience. If you go to jimmychurchradio.com, go to the homepage, scroll down, you'll see Linda's picture, and then you'll see her Earth Files. .com little animated banner right there next to her. Just click on that; it'll take you straight over, and it's easy enough to find. Earthfiles.com. Okay, I'm sorry about that, Linda.
That's all right, because now we've just scratched the surface on Project Condign related to UAP radiation and the link to John Burroughs' heart damage and the VA benefits in the line of duty in Rendlesham Forest that are related directly to the exposure to the UAP. And now let's go to another piece of evidence that the governments were concerned about what happened, and we're doing investigations as early as that February 23rd, 1981 date. This is the MOD's DI-55, and it is, the subject line is unexplained lights. And it says, like DI-55, another agency, DI-52, do not know of any serious explanation for the phenomena, PHENOMENA, described at the reference, which is unexplained light, and this is about RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, December 26th to 28th. So right there, in this inner memo in the MOD, within a month, they are referring to the phenomena. Then they say that background radioactivity varies considerably due to a number of factors, and it goes into values of milliroentgens per hour. And it says the measurements that they got out in the forest, quote, seem significantly higher than the average background of about 0.015 milliroentgens per hour. So within 1 month, this is phenomena, unexplained lights, and they are talking among each other in a document that only came out in FOIA not very long ago.
Right.
Having to do with significantly higher than average background of radiation. Now, radiation breaks down into ionizing and non-ionizing. And when you think of ionizing as alpha, beta, gamma radiation that can split off electrons, that makes them ions, and that's where it's very dangerous. That's what happens if an atomic bomb is dropped. That's ionizing radiation, and it does terrible damage to bodies depending upon exposure, closeness, length of time. And the alpha, beta, gamma, they got some of those readings out there in that category. In Project Condign, they're focusing on non-ionizing frequencies, and the one that John Burroughs understands is of great interest, both for weaponization and what was coming from those UAPs is in the terahertz frequency, and that is between infrared and microwave on the electromagnetic spectrum and at Earth Files in the parts 1 and 2 from February 27th. I go into this with a graphic to show where it is on the electromagnetic spectrum and to talk about this difference between, if you are talking about ionization, that is a different kind of radiation than non-ionizing, and the question has always been in our discussions about what would this UAP radiation be, that non-ionizing radiation, as we know it in things like, let's just go over in the current civilian world.
Sure.
Uses of non-ionizing radiation include those terahertz airport scanners that look through clothes looking for weapons. That's terahertz. And it can be microwaves. It can be heating food or telecommunications. Infrared lamps are used in restaurants to keep food warm. The radio wave broadcasting. So why would UAP radiation, as it's defined, lying between microwave and infrared on the electromagnetic spectrum, why would that be focused on in any way as damaging? And John said, and this is a quote from him, "The best I can tell you on this is that it was clear once this information about this kind of frequency was made available to his civilian doctors down in Phoenix, all of a sudden the doctors knew what to look for, and they did some more testing on me prior to that," meaning classified information was provided about this UAP radiation exposure at RAF Bentwaters in December 1980. It was classified, and somebody got information to his civilian doctors. And once they had the classified information, quote, "My civilian doctors could not understand that a guy of my health overall, my heart was healthy, other than the fact that it was being damaged because it kept going into AFib, atrial fibrillation, and congestive heart failure." The civilian doctors were so puzzled until they got this information. And then it turns out what they find is in the mitral valve in John Burroughs' heart. You can Google this. You can see photographs and diagrams that the mitral valve in the heart has leaflets, and they have to do with the flow of the blood. And the anterior back leaflet in John Burroughs, when they finally had this information about what to look for, it was completely shredded. They had not seen, the civilian doctors had never seen that before. And when they did the open heart surgery in mid-December of 2013, the doctors after the surgery let John know that that was truly life-saving surgery. He probably would have died within days if he had not had that open heart surgery. That's how bad it was. And the very fact that he didn't have blocked arteries, he didn't have any other heart disease, it was related to these leaflets in this mitral valve, underscored for John and for his attorney, Pat Frasconia, that they were dealing with classified information about what certain frequencies in the electromagnetic spectrum could do to human tissue, and that it would vary upon length of time of exposure. And John Burroughs is the only person that any of us know was exposed twice by people outside of him, saying that he was close or engulfed in or some proximity that was very close to these lights. Therefore, his exposure to whatever the definition is now by government insiders of UAP radiation, UAP is another acronym for UFO, we're talking about technology that is outside of Earth terrestrial technology.
And it also sounds like, in the right dose, that could explain what forced Podesta to the ground as well.
Yeah, that we're talking about energies that can have impacts on human minds. And in fact, in this page F4 of the Condign report, Annex F, it says in paragraph 16, they're talking about UAP radiation. It would seem that this effect can occur when close to a UAP, and they're talking about high probability that this electromagnetic radiation from UAPs can affect the human brain. I'm reading right from the Condign report.
Exactly.
And it would seem that this effect, that means effect on the human brain, can occur when close to a UAP, either outdoors or indoors. This causes the brain to interact in an unusual way with the imagination library, and they've got library in quotes, causing reports of visual activity which are not, in fact, a true representation of the facts. I mean, this is what this report is saying. But it goes on to underscore that they know that this UAP radiation is used to manipulate human minds. So when it comes to what happened to Adrian Podesta, and he says, the light forced me to the ground, it would fall into this category of an interaction with the mind that it was able to get Adrian Podesta to either he thought he was falling, he thought he was pushed. Something took a military guy who was next to John Burroughs and put him on the ground.
Yeah, not only, you're exactly right. And I just like you, I'm sure you did the same thing I did. John and I, on the phone one day, we read Condign together, right? And just revelation after revelation, I should say revelation after revelation together. And but I would go back to John, and I know you've done the exact same thing, which is, John, okay, so what do you remember? I don't remember anything.
That's right.
You know, I don't remember, John, give me a detail. Dude, I would love to, Jimmy. I don't remember a thing. I don't remember Penniston. I don't remember that. I don't remember that. There are blank spots here that I don't remember a thing. And that's exactly what the Condign report is saying to the letter. Yeah, and I have myself personally been a person trying to help John with a variety of hypnosis sessions going all the way back to the 1990s was the first we tried, and he couldn't get anything. And then in the 2009 to 2010 period, I got him into, it was two different people. They did very good work. And the closest John got was he is under, and he is describing
blue lights, these blue lights always have come up in his hypnosis sessions as if the blue lights will not let him go in his mind closer to a black space that he may have entered. And it's interesting to me, having interviewed so many people in the human abduction syndrome, that there are these periods in the, let's say, the process. Some people don't remember anything either, or some people remember going through a wall and it felt like feathers on their skin.
Right.
Some people have been conscious going up through a ceiling. There's these various levels of consciousness or no consciousness until they're in a room. Well, there have been a few people, exactly as what happens under the hypnosis session when John got the closest. These blue lights seem to have been programmed in some way in his mind to block him from remembering. And I have been in a few cases where people will be moving toward a craft or something is happening, and then they'll get a block, and the block will be from something like blue lights.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, it's been red lights. But it's as if we are dealing with a very advanced technology that knows exactly how to interact with our bodies and our human minds.
When John worked with you on doing this press release, and he hit me with it at the same time, and I was so excited that day. It was such a great day. But have you ever, you've been doing this for a long time, Linda, have you ever seen anything come this close to disclosure or admitting in anything that you have done in the past?
Well, in fact, I would go beyond that word, and I agree with Pat and John. This, to me, is confirmation. This is confirmation by the Department of Defense through the Veterans Administration that they are saying that the UAP radiation, this caused the injury in the line of duty in Rendlesham Forest, where John was based and had these close encounters with the UAP or UFOs here in the U.S. in the forest, and that radiation could cause damage to the leaflets in his heart and cause problems in his eyes. And that is Pat Frasconia put it in the press release. This is the first time on record.
Right.
It's an implied confirmation. So disclosure almost becomes irrelevant because it's already happened.
Right. Well, you personally, where you've been on this quest and this journey for so long, is this the closest that you have to personally where, we all want the best for John, but I mean, you personally, where you just went, oh, finally.
Yeah, I've always thought that RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge was the most important case because it involved so many people in the military, and we could go for 6 hours tonight just going over all of the interviews that over the past several years that I have done with a lot of different people who were there. I mean, it was an incredible 72 hours that took place. And there is a whole section, Jimmy, that I'm not disclosing yet that relates to a very, very stunning possible revelation in relationship to Bentwaters. And I'm going to introduce that for the first time at the Eureka Springs Conference in the first weekend in April. And I'm not being coy. I am being, there are pieces of it. It's multifaceted. And I am trying to get as many pieces that are firm when I do that presentation. But what this says to me is that I have been working on pieces of RAF Bentwaters ever since Chuck DeCaro was working at CNN, and I was working on the HBO special in Denver, Colorado, UFOs, the ET Factor, and Chuck DeCaro and I met and we talked about RAF Bentwaters, which, remember, it did not appear into the world, I think it was October of 1983, approximately 3 years after the first event. And then Chuck DeCaro was the very first, I would say, mainstream investigative reporter who did a series of 5 parts for CNN. He was in a special investigative unit based in Washington, D.C. And Chuck did as many interviews as he could get people to do. And back then, John Burroughs wouldn't talk to him.
Right.
So, but that was, for me, 1983 to 4. Chuck did the series for CNN in 1984. And that's where it really seriously began. And people like Ray Boucher in Nebraska was working with Senator Exxon. They were trying to get information from as many people as they could. Excuse me. And that we were all in various layers. There were different levels of exposure, from the first News of the World story with Larry Warren that was using a pseudonym at the time, and then through the years, in 1986, there was a mathematician back east, and I sat with Larry Warren for like 6 hours. And we went through his perspective, and I have all of Larry Warren's transcripts at Earth Files. There were so many different people that in the 2009, 10, 11, 12 periods related to finding and tracking down other people who were there when John Burroughs was there that third night and saw him, and they are sort of reinforcing from the outside the facts of what happened, the Lidalls going in with all of these men. All of those interviews are at earthfiles.com with some of the most interesting detail about what was happening in the radar towers. And when you read everything and you realize that something highly significant went on for 72 hours, and then when Jim Penniston tied his, we'll call it the telepathic download along with the binary code to the idea of time travelers coming from 50,000 years in the future. That's in the hypnosis transcript that he did in 1994. And that they were coming here to harvest genetic material to use as Band-Aids back 50,000 years in the future, where apparently something really bad was happening, and that the entire projected human civilization was facing complete and total extinction if they couldn't artificially keep DNA going or something along those lines. Now, I guess we could say, Jimmy, that if that telepathic download were anywhere true, it means we're going to get past ISIS. We're going to get past nuclear war.
We're going to make it.
we're going to keep going for at least another 50,000 years. And the complexity of all of the facets, when you start getting into the depths of R.A.F. Bentwater's Woodbridge, you are touching on almost every facet of what has been known as the UFO phenomena since at least the 40s, if not before, depending upon how far back you go in literature that's anecdotal. And the problem that John and others have, if he doesn't remember, let's say, encountering a machine or an android or a being or anything, which he does not,
right,
then for John, this is in the category of some kind of an energy system being used by someone for ... questions. And then you come to what John is convinced, that this UAP radiation, which, let me give you one other piece to cogitate about here. This is on page F7 in Annex F. It says that under a table having to do, and it's labeled object UAP, that's unidentified aerial phenomena, and it's broken down into diameters of UAPs. That means somebody has a big database and they're able to put together a table about exposures from radiation from these different sized UAPs. So have that as the context for this quote. We are assuming that UAP is a radiation plasma or charged mass source with effective aperture shown. This is this table in relationship to sizes.
Right.
The recorded appearance of plasma balls exceptionally reaches the largest value shown. And so the part to hear is plasma balls. However, this should not be confused with the large triangles, rectangles, and other large shapes reported among UAPs.
Where did they get the data from?
Well,
you know, when you read that, obviously it's coming from a database. Obviously, there's research. They know, and the distribution of said papers are going to people that know exactly what they're referring to, and there's no question about what they're writing. It blows my mind. It really does. It was one of the most fascinating reads. The first time I read Condign and I was reading through that, I'm thinking to myself, this is official, not admitting, it's just conversation about something known. It's fascinating read.
And Jimmy, the idea that these could be just plasma balls in one sentence is completely contradicted in the next sentence if there are large triangles, rectangles, and other large shapes. Those are not plasma balls.
Right.
So we're talking about a Project Condign report that is detailing what insiders inside of the UK and the US government have been comparing notes since at least World War II on unidentified aerial objects that ran rings around Royal Air Force jets. That we know that Churchill and Eisenhower probably talked about this, that they were talking with the Truman administration, and allegedly Churchill warned, we must keep this completely secret and away from the public and the media for at least 2 generations, and that would have been from the war years to early 90s. So what happened in the 90s that changed their decision to let the whole world know the truth? We're at 2015,
right?
And it still is, in many ways, it's more complex now. And that's where I was headed when you asked me, is this the closest? And I said, this is, for me, a confirmation that the governments are saying it's true, it's real, it's a phenomena. The radiation can affect human tissue and brains and all of that. But the complexity of hybrids, clones, bases, solar systems, the whole issue of time travel, parallel dimensions. We are now at a time where quantum physics papers are coming out, it seems like every other week, basically supporting ideas that this cosmos is beyond complex when it comes to our understanding the relationship of parallel universes, other dimensions, other timelines, so that the variety of what we could be dealing with in unidentified aerial phenomena could range through all of it, from extraterrestrial biological entities to other dimensional entities. And once you realize that the language is there, that we are at a time when more and more people are reading about time travel, are reading about the issue of parallel universes, not like it is something from sci-fi, that this is growing right out of what quantum physicists are studying now and reporting about. And maybe for the first time, the ground the plowed ground of the world is beginning to be deep enough and rich enough that if the governments all, and when I say governments plural, I am assuming that most of the power 1% are in on this. And whether or not they don't want to open it up because they would lose control, they don't want to open it up because they're weaponizing ET technology, they don't want to open it up because, I mean, you can start filling in those blanks.
Yes.
But you come to your and my and John's and other people's bottom line. This is a subject that all Homo sapiens should know. This is not something that a tiny elite should continue to profit, manipulate, build weapons on, and continue to run a world that's concocted and that we're not told the truth. And along those lines, John Burroughs has done something else very, very important, and he was recognized for this on Saturday, February 21st at the Open Minds Conference in Phoenix. John received the 2015 Researcher of the Year Award at the Open Minds Congress. And this was because of John's breakthrough by using Freedom of Information requests to the UK's Ministry of Defence that has finally provoked the Ministry of Defence to admit that it did not release all UFO, UAP files to the National Archives that it made such big publicity about, like over a period of 3 or 4 years. And Larry King had people on each time that there were new documents.
Right.
That the whole, when about 3 or 4 years ago, when there was a headline that the Ministry of Defense had released all of its UFO files to the National Archives, and then, oops, there was this subheading, except the RAF Bentwater's files have gone missing. That was the quote that was in the UK newspapers, have gone missing. Well, John may have found, or at least gotten an admission about the existence of at least 18, and they are classified files. They are listed in the FOIA reply that John got this fall, saying that 6 were policy files. That would be what we would consider to be really heavy red meat in these documents if we could ever read all of them, the policy files. And the next step, Jimmy, is we are in March now and at 2015. And in these replies to John, admitting that they had withheld 18 classified files, they said that they would keep those files until the fall of 2015, and then they would release them, maybe. And John and I have talked about this. In one of my interviews, he was saying that his expectation would be that they would keep these files for all of this time to redact.
Yeah, and can I ask you a question about that really quick? We're talking about, is it 19 or is it 18 pages? Or when we say 18 files, a file could be 100 pages, 50 pages?
Project Condign can be a file. It's 460 pages long.
Exactly. So we're talking about a lot of stuff here that's already been redacted. We don't have to worry about that. They're going to re-redact the redactions.
And so this fall, John and his attorney would encourage, anybody who has the persistence and the will. What needs to be done is to watch for what they do release in the 18 withheld classified files. And if they come out with a lot of black lines or white lines, whiting out now is considered more sophisticated than blacking out, but we'll see.
Right.
Then what we need are FOIA on on what is behind the black or white redactions.
You know, there's an elephant in the room here too, and we kind of danced over it a little bit. I want to back up. The elephant in the room for me is, and it was for John McCain as well, is classified medical records. Now, if you're going to classify, why would you classify somebody's? Why would that be top secret? Why would you deny somebody his very own medical records unless something either happened during that period that maybe they were working on his mind? Certainly he doesn't remember certain things. That's an aspect of it, and they don't want that disclosed, because if that's disclosed and it's in his medical records, then why are you doing that to him unless something happened, right? There's that part of it. Or do his medical records flat out state this encounter with the UFO in the forest, and they were dealing with an ET technology on John? Either or, that's what it is. There's a reason why those are being withheld. And John, and when John said to me, I said, "So did you ask Senator McCain about, you know, the classified medical records?" And he goes, McCain said to me, I could be wrong on this, so let me paraphrase, but McCain said, "What do you mean classified medical records?" You know, and because that's just not supposed to happen. And don't you think that is like the big elephant in the room?
Well, it still is, because he still doesn't have his medical records. He's gotten his VA medical benefits,
right,
finally, with McCain's help, but he still does not have access to his 79 to 82 medical records from RAF Bentwaters because they are still classified. And it seems so bizarre, doesn't it, to have benefits that get acknowledged and are granted and in the line of duty, and in the line of duty relates to exposure to UAP radiation in Rendlesham Forest in December 1980, but those medical records that are intimately germane to his heart damage he cannot get, and nobody thought that was possible. That's right. Everybody thought that a military person who had served and is found injured in the line of duty should have access to those medical records that are germane. Now, let me offer one possibility for why they remain classified. If you have a big database of this, we'll continue to call it the acronym UAP radiation,
right,
that may or may not be in the terahertz, non-ionizing, and used by non-humans in a very specific way that we do not understand. But so we'll just keep calling it the UAP radiation. And you have a database, because that's been suggested all over the place in Condign. They're putting together tables and stuff, and that's based on a lot of knowledge, experience, and measurements. That implies that if you know what happened to human tissue, you can work backwards from that damage to the radiation. You can calculate the radiation and perhaps learn and calculate something working backwards to the technology. I'm sure that the UK and the US governments in some agency, in some division, has done a lot of stuff like that. And that they have much more firsthand knowledge and experience about what will, let's just put it in this big label and call it non-human phenomena. So the way governments work, when they realize that there is an energy system here from something foreign, and it can do damage, it can manipulate minds, what's the next thing? What's the first thing they're going to think about? Weapons. So if you're in the MOD or the Department of Defense or the CIA or the NSA or that world, then what's the first thing that ever happens if you have anything that comes into the category of weapons? It's classified. So throughout all of this, over the last 35 years, there has been leaks, allegedly, that or documents as if defending the MODs not commenting on RAF Bentwaters much because they said it was of no defense significance.
Right.
We have found that phrase.
Right.
And John would argue that Project Condign alone, you read the whole 460 pages, this is about energy that can interact with human minds, human tissues, and it means earth tissues, not just humans. We're organic life forms. And that it's being weaponized, and we don't know all of the, we'll call it the political, geopolitical, territorial priorities that are being involved here, because you and I don't know about the agendas of the non-humans versus humans. Let's assume that there are agencies that do. So if you can get the energy system to work that you have seen in forests, and you have people who have been affected by it, and you can get smart scientists to start working with that same kind of energy, and start developing weapons to be used against X, you are then in the most classified field that would exist for the UK and the US. And that probably is why John Burroughs' medical records are still classified and not released, even if that seems completely absurd given what's happened to him medically.
Yeah, you know whose medical records get classified? James Bond, while he was in Moscow, overthrowing or dealing with nuclear missiles through, something. That's what gets classified, and I get that. Not a search and an investigation of a lighthouse in a forest in England on New Year's Eve. You know what I mean? It's.
I do, and Jimmy, I hope people are making these dots that weather balloon, that was counter-intel. Counter-intel are very bright minds. They got us through World War I and II. Counter-intel are the people who sit around figuring out we have to keep the public and the media away from subjects A through Z, and this is how we're going to do it. And when the 1947 rash, it wasn't just one, there was a rash of unidentified aerial vehicles that came down in a number of places in that period. And so the weather balloon got trotted out as the explanation on the one that probably was a genuine error when the teletype under the Blanchard at the Roswell Army Airfield said to, it was Haught. Haught. Send this information out that we have a downed, and I think they said disc or saucer. I think they said down flying saucer. That was probably a mistake meaning that one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing, because when you have so much compartmentalization around highly classified subjects, the people on the lower authority levels at the base might not have known anything, and they just did what was honest. So immediately it had to be transformed into something that would contain the story and keep the public and the media at bay, and here comes the weather balloon story.
Sure.
And throughout the years, swamp gas and lids thrown up in the air and all of these crazy things that are efforts by counterintelligence to keep the public and the media at bay. And in fact, to underscore how serious the governments of the UK and the US took this issue of keeping the public and the media completely out of anything since World War II having to do with what their own documents have called extraterrestrial biological entities interacting with Earth, and now we know it might also be from parallel universes and other timelines.
Right,
but
right.
There is, and this is very significant, this is like the Project Condign level of, I think, of importance. This is what Bob Wood, who worked at McDonnell Douglas, and his son Ryan Wood, they came into possession of a lot of documents leaked in a variety of ways, and they put together the www.majesticdocuments.com website, which I recommend everybody to take a look at all of those documents they have. And one of the most important that we think was dated 1952, it was called the Majestic 12 Project First Annual Report, and probably most people listening are very aware of the MJ-12, Majestic 12, Majority 12. There's conflict about whether MJ was majority or majestic. That here was a group of people that Harry Truman, President of the United States in World War II, handpicked and put them together, and it makes so much sense. There were some military, business, science. Detlef Bronk was a doctor, and they were to consult with Truman and Vannevar Bush, who Truman relied upon for all things science. And this group of men were given the assignment to try to study various aspects of this phenomena and do it completely secretly. And this, that I'm just going to quote one paragraph, is 1952 first annual report, meaning that if they put this together in 47 to 48, as we think, this group then had been doing studies on this for about 4 years. And here is one of their government policy of control and denial, 52. Okay, quote, one of the most difficult aspects of controlling the perception in the public's mind of government attempts of denial and ignorance about these unidentified aerial craft is actual control of the press. When they say actual control, they mean that they can stop and start anything they want by having control inside of the press. Until a clear intent is established with diplomatic relations firmly in hand, they're talking about the motives and the agendas of the extraterrestrial biological entities that they are studying. It is the recommendation of the President's special panel with concurrence from Majestic 12 that a policy of strict denial of the event surfacing from Roswell, New Mexico, and any other incident of such caliber be enforced. And by then, they had had many crash retrievals. An interactive program of controlled releases to the media in such fashion to discredit any civilian investigation be instituted in accordance with the provisions of the 1947 National Security Act that Truman signed into existence as September of 1947. And the discs, and there were wedge-shaped, and there were discs. There were a lot of different things coming down in different places. And the summer of 47 was one of those peaks. And Truman had the first Secretary of Defense, Forrestal, came into office at about the same time that he organized the Central Intelligence Agency that was formally came into being September 18th, 1947. The Secretary of Defense, I think, was appointed the day before. So all of these things were happening within what? If the month of July.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
So July.
Yeah, September.
Then August.
Yeah.
And then September. So we're talking a month and a half or 2 months at the most later.
You had
all of this.
You had Seattle. You had Phoenix. That was the same week, and then you had Roswell. It was coming down like rain.
And there were 3 wedge-shaped craft between July 2nd and July 5th. I think that the Majestic 12 document information is the most correct when it talks about that one of these wedge-shaped objects did come down between Roswell and Corona. And another one came down on the White Sands area near what's called the Trinity site. That's where we did the atomic test in July of 1945.
Right.
And it's always been called the Trinity site. Well, we're in 47, and it's my understanding that a wedge-shaped vehicle came down in that vicinity, and a third was 30 miles east of Alamogordo on the Mescalero Indian Reservation. And that one on the Indian Reservation was supposed to have been nearly destroyed by impact, or who knows, because I think at that time, this is another thing, that if we were in the government then, we probably would have wanted all of this to be classified too, that they were using microwave radiation in radar, high strength, and they realized, as I understand it, they stumbled into this, that if they aimed a specific intense microwave frequency in radar at an area where one of these disks was, they could bring it down out of the sky. That meant that we stumbled onto something that would interfere with whatever these, whether they were drones, whether they were manned, whatever they were, we could bring them down with microwave radiation. That would have been an extremely important piece, and I can understand why they would have wanted that to stay classified. So we do not know how many of these downed, I'm going to call them drones, because I don't think that all of the stuff that was coming down in the 40s to the early 50s were manned by a prime intelligence. I think that they would be much more akin to what we think of drones over Iran, Iraq, and stuff right now. And so what we were bringing down probably had a mixture of things inside. There would have been a mixture of different types of craft that were doing different kinds of work. And it probably was a booming, buzzing confusion to all of, in the government side, what in the world are we dealing with? Different types. Some of them seem like real androids. Some seem like that they are organic. They're different shaped craft. What are we dealing with? Well, that's the climate in which President Truman put together MJ-12 and all of these policies of strict denial, keeping the public and the media at bay. And once you have policies of denial, that means that you have people that are working in the CIA, and eventually the NSA came into being, and the DIA and the NRO, and on, that it is their job. Sometimes I think we all forget this. Governments do have reasons to have policies of denial. And under those policies of denial, they are ordered to lie.
Isn't it fascinating how close we were? If Walter Haut hadn't had done what he had did, he was minutes away from total secrecy. If he would not have gotten that out, if he would not have dealt with Blanchard, if everything would have just been, if they would have had, I swear, another 20 minutes, we might not have ever known about Roswell. And it would have been a totally different situation. But Haut got the press release out. It made it to the paper, and things are different today. But isn't it doesn't it kind of just make your stomach turn just a little bit, how we were just literally minutes away from not knowing anything about Roswell?
Well, I'll tell you something that from the time I started trying to get to the bottom of the animal mutilations in complete and total innocence, when I started the first research in September of 79, and could see how upset law enforcement was. They were the ones in the trenches, so to speak, dealing with the animal bodies. And they were the ones telling me, Linda, the perpetrators are creatures from outer space. And I was as shocked as anybody could possibly be. And on all these different levels of shock about subjects, and coming to your point that if there had not been let's just call it a historic oversight, and the RAF Blanchard, he did what he would do, what anybody would be doing if they weren't on the inside being told not to. So let's say that it was an innocent error. That over all of these years, the one thing that I have come to see is that there grows inside of a lot of people a kind of resentment about the policies of lies, about something so significant and profound as we're not alone in the universe, and that other life forms have been coming and going on this planet, not just for decades, not just for centuries, I think for thousands, millions of years. And that all of the confluence of what happened in World War II on the human level, with this overlay of what our own government called extraterrestrial biological entities, on top of that war, and that those people, Churchill, General Eisenhower before he became president, President Truman, they were handling or trying to cope with extraordinarily serious issues having to do with what happens if World War II, the Nazis had won and Hitler could run the world. What happens if the public finds out about extraterrestrials on top of what's just happened in World War II? Everything will fall apart. That was apparently what they were worried about. That may not have been the case. It may be that we would have then grown up in the last 60 years on a stronger planet, maybe without wars, if we had been told the truth. But nevertheless, I can see from one lens that if you're in the government and you're trying to deal with those kinds of profound issues, that in a kind of super patriotic lens inside their minds, that having policies of denials and lies becomes very, very important, almost at that profound level inside of people. This is our duty. We must do this to save not just the United States, but the world. You can sort of get into that mindset, right?
Sure.
But what I'm coming to is that what I have seen happen is how many people have, 3 or 4 before they died, that they were so upset, they became so almost sickened by realizing that their entire life work was on something that was real, something that all of us should know about, but because if you sign non-disclosure agreements and you sign your life away to agencies, you really cannot talk or you will have terrible repercussions, that they wanted before they died to speak the truth about extraterrestrials. And so over time, even if the RAF leak, we'll call it that, had not happened, I am convinced there would have been other leaks by people who, I've seen it happen. They become, it's almost as if living with something that's that big, a lie about the fact that we're not alone in this universe and never have been. And all of these men, especially in military, have had so many interactions with aspects of this phenomena, and they know for a fact, but they are sworn never to speak, but they reach points in their lives and they feel like they must speak before they die.
You know, Linda, I was thinking earlier today before the show, I want to throw this out there. We're at the top of the hour. I'm just going to say Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. We are speaking with the one and only Linda Moulton Howe. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're talking about a variety of subjects tonight. We just covered Rendlesham and John Burroughs and his press release that he did earlier this week. Actually, yeah, I guess earlier this week because we're still on March 3rd, right? So that counts.
Yeah, but the press release was Sunday, February 22nd.
Yeah, 22nd. But I was thinking, do you want to have, wouldn't you love to have the greatest, most listened to radio show in the world? Wouldn't that be awesome, Linda? And this is how we would do it. All we have to do is stream our phone conversations. That's all we would have to do. That's all we would have to do. Think about that. We wouldn't have to do anything. We wouldn't have to run commercials. We wouldn't even have to work. We would think. No, I want you to pause for a second and contemplate that. It's not a bad idea, is it?
I know that there are people listening and that there are people in every country who have been exposed to something and they know that we are talking about something that is very substantial and important. But unfortunately, because of skilled counterintelligence over the last 60 years, the vast majority of people in all the nations have been conditioned to think that there are no UFOs, there are no ETs. So we are on a concocted planet.
Right.
Our radio broadcast of our telephone conversations might be of interest and be totally relevant to maybe 1% of the population, and brings into focus what is a gigantic problem on the earth, in addition to all the other problems, is that we are living a concocted lie, and that maybe if everybody knew at least the basic facts about the true history, what's out there, most of it I don't think is a threat. I really do not. And that we somehow have to get past all of this political inertia that has been reinforced by very skilled counterintelligence, that it doesn't exist. And people they say, are happier going forward in life not knowing anything about ETs. Well, I fundamentally think that we're in a cosmos where the truth matters, and it matters in a kind of infinity way, and that we need to have all of the truth to almost sort of bring the earth back into resonance with the divine field in some odd way, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
There's something so fundamentally wrong here.
Well, you know, and when the argument comes from the other side, not only skeptics, but the government in general, when they're in this denial pattern, you know, prove to us that, you know, ET is here and that UFOs are real. That isn't the case anymore, Linda. The argument coming right back is, prove to me that they're not. Prove to me that they're not coming here.
Yeah, and now if we jump out even further into what's happening in our own solar system right now, they're calling it a dwarf planet Ceres. This is between Mars and Jupiter, and this is where the Dawn spacecraft from NASA JPL is going to go into orbit by the end of this week. It will be spiraling down, and here we are getting these provocative photographs where scientists involved are saying they really don't understand what this is, and these are those two bright spots in a crater, and they are so bright, and the scientists have offered the possibility of two things: sun reflection on ice in this crater, or some kind of, I think they're called volcanoes of icy water from underneath. The problem is, they've also been showing these videos, as the Ceres is rotating. It's about the size of Texas, but it's round, if you know what I mean, in terms of the surface area. If you turn Texas into a ball, it's about that size. If the videos keep showing these bright reflections not changing as it revolves, it can't be sun on ice.
Yes. And with the first time I heard the reflection thing, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute, you can see the shadow here. The sun is coming from the left. I'm just saying left for in relation to the picture, but it's not coming straight on. There is no reflection going. If the reflection would come from another angle, only if the sunlight would even get out there. That's another issue to cause that kind of bright reflection. And so anyway, when you're watching the rotation that you're referring to, the thing is lit up in the dark side too. And as it rotates,
that's the question.
Yeah. I mean, what brainiac did that press release is all I'm saying. They didn't think through that one at all.
Yes, and I bring this up only in the fact that there may be some wonderful new cosmic mystery out there that will be solved, and we will learn something about this dwarf planet Ceres, and it will add to our astronomic planetary body knowledge. But it is so extraordinarily bright, and there are two
of them.
spots, and so far there isn't a really solid scientific explanation. And so here is a story to keep watching out of curiosity, and do it with that stereoscopic. It could be pure new astronomy discovery, or question mark, is there anything about this or any of some of these stories that pop up about strange mysteries in our solar system, that they have any relationship to this other phenomena, which we really do know exists, and that it has been interacting with this planet for a long time, and that we know what we know from human abductees and leakers, and that the time feels right. I guess I'm going to turn this around and ask you, does the time seem right to you, Jimmy, even with all of the chaos in the Middle East and the wars, that the time is here now for everybody to be told the truth, sort of reset the planet, and see if we could go forward in perhaps even less war?
Yes, I think it would be a big pressure valve release. That's what it would be. It would have a serious calming effect. My cousin said to me, who is not a ufologist, he's not, but he's fascinated with the subject, but he's not where we are in it. But he said one thing to me that really struck home, and he said that disclosure, finding out what would be worse for planet Earth, for humanity, would be to find out that we are alone. It would crush us. It would crush our very spirit, and we wouldn't have anything to live for as a species, as a planet, as a whole. What would give us hope for the future is to find out finally that we are not alone, and we have a reason to explore, and we have a reason to move forward. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating. And isn't that a really, really great way to look at it?
Yeah, I kind of think that spirit of the West and getting to the moon and getting to Mars, it is fundamental to something in the human soul itself. And that is why I think Interstellar had the impact on me and others. And when I saw that film, it was in Albuquerque, and when it had opened, Interstellar, and saw it in IMAX. And the idea that the Earth was being trashed is basically what happened. Whether food, everything was down to one strain or so of wheat, things were dying out on the Earth, and so the Interstellar launch is one of those let's go west and see if we can find a new place to live idea.
Right.
And then to realize the movie is so impactful on so many levels, having to do with a reality check that they went to people who haven't seen it. I won't go into a lot of details, but one of the planets was very close to a large, massive body, and it had liquid on the surface, but because of the gravitational pull, water would go up into this miles high sloshing back and forth on this planet, and this would be unlivable. And another one was an icy snowball, and it would be unlivable in terms of what we know on Earth. And it gave you this feeling that humanity is going to try to survive no matter what comes, and that the Earth is so wonderful and so perfect that if you walk out of Interstellar after seeing all of this effort to find another place because we had trashed Earth, you just love the sky and the sun and the water and the animals. It was like a whole new look at this planet that we must preserve and cherish life here, because it really is the only lifeboat for the vast majority of humans.
Yeah, you know what I do? This is how my mind works. When I fly, you live in L.A., it's nothing but concrete for hundreds of miles, north, south, east, west. That's all it is just concrete, miles and miles and miles of concrete. But when you jump on a plane and you get out of this congestion and just fly to New York or fly to Miami, fly across the United States, and you look at the vast amount of beauty that is underneath, it's not, we haven't crossed the point of no return, is what I'm saying. We still have a lot of beauty here. There's a lot of nature still left. We haven't ruined it all just yet, and I'm always, just like you're saying, I'm always hopeful. I am definitely the glasses half full guy. And when I fly across the United States and I see the beauty and I see the space in between the cities, I still feel like it's still okay. We can still pump the brakes on this bus, and everything will be okay. Yeah.
But there are sad realities, like there was just a brand new science report that some of the gulls on the West Coast, 60% decline in the population of gulls in just the last approximately 15 years. And the reason is the gulls do not have enough fish to eat. That means that the fish populations have been depleted so badly. It isn't as if they're all migrating north or south in other temperature bands. There's literally a count, and the number of fish are going down. Gulls, the idea that there would be a 60% decline in seagulls, and these are the kinds of statements that are coming out of hard data on a regular basis now, and it makes this sense of angst that we have to come to some kind of better balance with this big planet, or we are going to lose it.
What about monarch butterflies? Look at that.
Oh, it's so sad. There are monarch butterflies that will exist, at least as far as I know. All monarchs will not go extinct, at least not for the foreseeable future. But the monarchs that have made the complicated, beautiful, cyclic migration to that area in Mexico year after year, they used to cover something like 90 acres or a huge range, and solid, beautiful orange and black monarch butterflies. And then they had this complicated migration where they would come back up across the Gulf and through Texas, and there would be a double generation. I mean, it's
quadruple generation. Yeah, you live and die during the migration. Yeah, amazing.
And passing on that particular generation through another, and all of it all part of the same migratory cycle until another one begins. It is really one of those phenomena that is both beautiful and enchanting, and it haunts your mind, the idea where once upon a time the size of that migration was just like this orange and black gigantic tapestry in the sky that would come down on those trees in Mexico. And today, it is so small. So many are gone. And now, if we can't get milkweed, that's what they like to eat. Milkweed has been killed by pesticides throughout all the migratory routes. And we have gone overboard on pesticides, and that's another area. If we could come back into balance, where one scientist I talked to has been trying to get local areas, especially on the migration route of these beautiful butterflies, to go out and encourage children in school, in junior high, in high school. Go into your neighborhoods, find alleys, talk with people and say, if we could plant milkweed going all along, let's say, this particular street or the sidewalks, and start getting areas of cities and towns that might not be being used, are not going to be threatening any crop, so they won't be in the road or in the way of pesticides. But if we could start filling up spaces all over where these beautiful butterflies need the milkweed, we might be able, as humans, to bring those gorgeous monarchs back simply by starting a campaign everywhere to plant the milkweed. These are the kinds of things that if we could get kids from age 6 on in schools, have school sort of lined up with constructive things that kids would feel like they were doing something important, we might change a lot of problems there in the evolution of youth too.
You know, what we're going to do real quick, if you don't mind, I've got about 50 questions lined up here in Twitter, and I've ignored all of that all night. And also, Linda, we did it once again. We didn't do Dragonfly drones.
We'll do another show.
We didn't do it. I can't believe it. And what did I say to you today? I want to do Dragonfly, but we won't get to it. And here we are. We didn't get to it. Yeah, we have to do Dragonfly, and we'll get you back before Contact in the Desert. Let me turn here. I have so many questions here in Twitter. This is from Lauren Robb out of Canada. What does Miss Howe think of the Kodachrome Roswell slides? Ooh.
Well, that is a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question.
And I did this past week. In fact, you can go to earthfiles.com right now, and it's under, let's see, February 27th, and it was an interview that I did with Jaime Maussan, and it was about what he sees with his own eyes when he looks at the Kodachrome, the 2 Kodachrome slides. And it was so interesting because Jaime, in talking with Tom Carey and Don Schmidt, those two were UFO investigators that took, they've taken quite a while trying to find out that these are in fact Kodachrome slides, vintage 47 to 49. There was history done on the box of the person who had died, Hilda Blair Ray, and she had been married to a geologist, and they had divorced, and she died in 1988. And for a very long time, apparently her possessions were not gone through by anybody, and it took about another 10 years for I think it was somebody cleaning the house, that found a box that had 400 and some slides, and eventually 2 of them with what appears to be a 3.5 to 4 foot long. Jaime says the skin is pinkish gray, and they don't know if the gray part is because of decomposition. There's no dating except that the Kodachrome slide is real. They had a reality check with a historian with Kodak who confirmed that these slides really are from that area. Now, one of the interesting things in the research about the woman's background, who they found this box of all these slides, she was in the 40s, in that 47, that critical year of what we'll call the various non-human crashes and retrievals. She was a pilot. She was an attorney. And I think Don Schmidt and Tom Carey have told in a presentation in a conference that there is some indication that she may have been doing work for an intelligence agency. And her husband was a geologist who seemed to almost disappear from the scene after 1947 in an unusual way, making their lives and their divorce and her continuing life and this box with all of these Kodachrome slides quite interesting in the context of their lives. And in some of these Kodachrome slides, you can go to Earth Files and you can see some of this yourself. There is a slide of Dwight D. Eisenhower with his wife Mamie and an unnamed couple. So now that's the context of these two slides, and Jaime says it is, he agreed with the idea of childlike proportions of the body, said the head is not a gray, as we think of a gray with the big black eyes, but that it does have a head that is larger in proportion to the smaller body, and that the eyes that they have depicted at their website, Jaime's has a website now which is dedicated to his event that he's going to call it, I think it's called Be Witness, on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, at the National Auditorium in Mexico City, holds 10,000 people. Jaime is going to be joined by Tom Carey, Don Schmidt, Adam Dew, who did the history on Mrs. Ray, Carol Rosen, and NASA astronaut Edgar Mitchell. They are all going to be there with Jaime. It's going to be televised, and it's also going to be in this big stadium. And what Jaime wants to do, and I guess this is why they have waited since Tom Carey and Don Schmidt have had these slides waiting in the wings, that Jaime decided that it was too important to not present to a large audience and perhaps even international web, and that they are working with a team that is going to try to take the details of this small being who has one eye was taken out apparently in the autopsy, and the other eye is closed, so they do not have any accurate, there's no accurate detail on what the eyes were like beyond the fact the sockets were bigger but not black lenses, and that the very thin, small entity that Jaime has on the website, it is only a graphic illustration interpretation, the green solid eyes, that's not what they have there. But they are going to take what they do see in the two Kodachromes of this being that is inside of a transparent lid, like it's inside of a preservative case. And he's going to present to the audience holograms, one or more, so that people can see what a hologram based on what they are measuring in these slides would look like. And he still says he does not see in the slides what we would call a gray. But historically, what is so interesting to me, in another one of the important documents that has been around for quite a while and is at majesticdocuments.com, and I have it in full at Earth Files. There is the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit document that was about the Landing Zone 2, going back to that July 2nd to 5th time period when at least 3 were found, it says that it's describing bodies of non-humans recovered at landing zone 2, which I believe was near the Trinity site. It appeared that none of the 5 crew members survived entry into our atmosphere due to unknown causes. It goes into Dr. Detlef Bronk doing an autopsy, some of the anatomical differences that they describe. And here it says their overall stature reminds one of young children. Further, Glenn Dennis was the mortician in Roswell in July of 1947. And long ago, he signed a notarized affidavit that was describing his discussion with a woman who alleged that she was a nurse and that she was at one of the autopsies, that they apparently did 3 autopsies or were going to do 3 autopsies, and that she sketched for Glenn Dennis one night in Roswell what she had seen, showing a very sort of childlike head and 4 fingers that had nubs on the end. And she disappeared, and her sketches disappeared. And then it was August 7, 1991, that Glenn Dennis did an affidavit, did his own sketches based on what he remembered the nurse had showed him, and that she said that the smell was so horrible that they were trying to do the autopsies on these 3 small beings in the hospital, and that the smell was overwhelming, and the decision was made to move to a hangar at the Roswell Army Airfield to continue the examination of these non-human bodies. Well, Jaime told me in an interview that I did on Coast to Coast this past week that they had tracked down a man who is still alive, 88 years old, who was a young guy in the RAF military, and that he ended up going into a hangar where he described a creature and was sort of reinforcing what they have in those Kodachrome slides, said the Kodachrome slide being resembles what he remembers seeing in a Roswell Army Airfield hangar, and that the smell was so bad that it made him want to vomit. So you have the Glenn Dennis 1991 affidavit about the nurse describing this smell and these small beings, and you have the Glenn Dennis nurse story in which she also sketches, if this is all correct, sketches childlike proportions and says the smell was so bad they had to move the autopsy from the hospital to the hangar. These are not what you call hard proof, but something very worthwhile, I believe, is here because these are vintage 47 to 49 slides, according to the historian at Rochester, and that on May 5th, 2015, Cinco de Mayo, from Mexico City and Jaime Maussan's website and the auditorium, they're going to show the slides to everybody for the first time and show these holographic projections. And then you and I and everybody, we will then have comparisons to make with what is already out there in the literature. So this could be very interesting. And one final note. Tom Carey, in describing the 2 Kodachrome slides last fall, said they were supposed to be insect-like. Exactly. I mean, there's no... Jaime doesn't know about that either, but certainly through history there have been descriptions of something that was insect-like. So who knows why that's out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, check this out. Let me get to another question real quick. I'm looking at the studio clock, and can you give me another 15 minutes, Linda? Just
Sure.
15? Okay, good. This is from Allison Bell. Actually, she's going after the Dragonfly drones here. She says, is there any more info that has been gathered about Carrot? Ask her if she thinks the language itself is responsible for the anti-grav effects. Wow. See, we have a smart audience. That's a great question.
Absolutely. I produced this fall, it came out in December, a new DVD. It's 55 minutes long, and my title is 10,000 BC Göbekli Tepe, which is 12,000 years ago, Ancient Stone Circles -ET engineering or terraforming. So in this 55-minute DVD, which you can all go to earthfiles.com and take a look at it in the Earthfiles shop, what I wanted to try to do was to bring together these various threads of what I think are really important pieces in the last 5 or 7 years, of which I think the Dragonfly drone is one of the most important, and it was one of the subjects that was attacked, and yet I and others who talked with people who had inside information or had seen them came away with this impression that we were dealing with a real phenomena in the sky that was flickering in and out as if there was a technology of invisibility or visibility that was being jammed or affected, and that maybe these things were in the sky a lot, and suddenly they were revealed in the summer of 2007. And for those listening who would like to know the whole story, I think I've done 30 Earthfiles reports between 2007 and 2008 with literally dozens of photographs. I think I had done 28 interviews. There's a lot in Earthfiles. But coming to the heart of this issue about the symbols, it was on the underneath, we called them the tails of the Dragonfly drones, that there were symbols in some of the photos. And eventually, a man who called himself Isaac came forward and communicated with me and communicated with Lex at the Coast website and put out these documents with images, and the whole thing boils down to self-activating software for self-activating machines. And the concept of the self-activating software, which I go into in huge depth in this DVD, that's why I brought up the DVD, it's something that you can go in and I think begin to understand this complex idea. And right now I'll just try to explain it this way. In one of the email communications early on with Isaac, from me to him and back, I was asking him to try to explain to me how the symbols on the extraterrestrial technology and all of those diagrams could do work, meaning how does it function? And he said, try to use a metaphor that self-activating software in our world might be something like this. That with a thought alone, meaning that the mind could interact once these self-activating software that makes self-activating hardware are created, the mind alone, perhaps generating a very specific field, we're back into resonance frequencies, and that once the field is generated, let's say that it's an 8.5 by 11 inch white blank piece of stationery paper. And I could look at that paper that has the software, the symbols, the mathematical language of all of the symbols embedded in it. You and I might not see anything, but it's embedded. The same thing that are drawn in those diagrams or a mathematical language that can be embedded in that piece of paper. And I look at it in that field, and the paper will automatically know from the thought in the mind, and it has the program. It will seek out the person that I want to communicate to. It will put all of the thoughts on the paper. I generating this, I don't have to do anything. The paper takes over, creates the text, does the dating, moves through the air or jump cuts to whoever is to receive, waits, generates a reply, jump cuts back to me, and I didn't have to do anything but think in the field, and the paper could do all the rest. That's self-activating software built in self-activating technology. And when you go into the CARET documents, which I do in this DVD and in these more than 24 reports I've done at Earth Files, I've gone into the CARET document in a lot of depth because I am personally convinced that it's a real document and that the photographs are of extraterrestrial technology, as Isaac described, and that when we come to the whole area, when I was talking about were they drones, were they unmanned drones in some of the cases that we brought down with microwave, and then in others we would bring down a craft and it would have something in that was clearly, they look like clones and they were all the same, and then something else comes down and we are dealing with a different type. That's where the self-activating software in self-activating hardware would apply to the drone concept. And in fact, jumping back to R.A.F. Bentwaters, when Jim Penniston was in Rendlesham Forest and was dragging his fingers around on that somewhat warmer black glass that had lights inside of it, he could see lights moving underneath the surface, and he gets to those symbols. Those are symbols, and they were raised above the surface. And when his fingers touched those symbols, that's when he got the download of the binary code and the telepathic thought that this had something to do with future and time travel and something very complex. That relationship then between geometries, patterns, mathematical language that can be superimposed into and on surfaces or inside of structures, that in a certain field, that's a key, the field, all it needs is to be triggered and it knows everything to do. And that might explain why Jim Penniston, because we've now discussed this in public, that the binary code turned out to be a series of latitudes and longitudes. And they are in various places on the planet. It could be argued that if it is a self-activating software machine, it doesn't need the prime intelligence to be in it or around it. It can move through time, it can move through space, it does all of the work that it's programmed to do, and that the very fact that it would have or give the human mind that was nearby a download of binary code, it could be argued that the binary code related to the work assignments of uploading and downloading what this machine was doing in its mission to go to these different places on the planet. We don't know, that speculation, but latitudes and longitudes make sense that androids from someplace else, just like we have Curiosity on Mars now, that relating to the latitude, longitude grids of this planet or wherever there would be exploration makes a lot of sense. And that is the download that Penniston got. That would be from my point of view, that would be just like Isaac was trying to describe in the Carrot document about the Dragonfly drones. The symbols on the tails were part of the self-activating software on those strange machines in the air that could produce neutralize gravity. This is what the document said: neutralize gravity, create invisibility, and that the machines usually were invisible unless the frequency was jammed, and then they would flicker in and out of visibility. And let's see, and the third is gravity. Projecting three-dimensional holograms that humans would not be able to distinguish from the environment of the world we're living in. That has come up so often in animal mutilations or the human abduction syndrome, where people have seen something in, let's say, an event that involved phenomena, and they swear up and down. There was this red square sign in the trees. This really happened in Elizabeth, Colorado. I'll never forget it.
Right.
And the deputy took me out there with my TV crew so I could see where they had seen a red glowing square in trees on a road where a orange fiery sphere came lickety-split at a rapid pace right to their police, or it was a deputy sheriff's car. And the two deputies thought they were on a collision course. The one deputy, Bill Waugh, was driving that car. He hit the brake with his foot, screaming at the other deputy, roll. They both hit their doors, rolled out on the ground, but he had tried to hit the brake before they rolled so that the car would slow down. And they are rolling on their backs on the ground, and Bill Waugh, the deputy, is looking and seeing this large orange sphere coming right at their car, and where they thought it was going to be a collision, explosion, the end of their lives, this thing did a 90-degree turn right at the windshield of the car that was still rolling. So it had the ability to do a 90-degree turn at something moving toward it while it moved toward and went off.
Right.
But when they then also saw this red pulsing square in the forest along the road where this occurred. They were so scared. A Deputy Waugh told me, he said, we just couldn't go any further. We were out investigating animal mutilations. This happened, and we both said, let's go back to the sheriff's office and go home and sleep. In the morning, after the sun came up, they went back out. There are the prints of their bodies because a lot of those roads were just dirt, no asphalt, no rocks, just dirt.
Sure.
So dusty dirt, and they could see where their bodies had rolled, the car, everything, the tire tracks, where it came to a stop, everything is there. And Bill Waugh, the deputy, said, Linda, we both seem to see at the same time, where is the forest? Where is the red pulsing square? They both remembered it. They both were shocked. There was not any tree there. But
what?
When all this,
really?
Not
really?
A single tree. Not any. It was flat prairie land. And they both, they told each other, there was a forest there, and we saw that red pulsing square light. Well, that to me is one of the classic examples that you run into in the human abduction syndrome and the high strangeness of this phenomena, the ability to project three-dimensional holograms for reasons unknown.
Right.
And that would have been a classic example, and that's what a deputy sheriff in Elizabeth, Colorado, told me and the crew when we were working on A Strange Harvest in 79 to 80.
it must have been difficult for him to even get that story out without, the fear of just, dude, you're out of control. That what you know what I mean? It's got to be very tough.
Well,
I wanted to say this about the Dragonfly drones really quick. That when you and you are going to come back and we are going to do a show on Dragonfly drones, and I don't want to talk about too much of it, but the one thing that when I first started reading all of your reports on Earth Files years ago and looking at the images, the one thing that stood out for me on all of this is it doesn't fit the paradigm. None of the images fit into what we are expecting to see. Not even the slightest bit of any of the part of the drone that you can look at looks like something that we would be familiar with. It is completely foreign, top to bottom, front to back, up and down, inside and out. Everything about the Dragonfly drones doesn't fit anything that we can be familiar with. And did that hit you the same way as it did me?
The very first image that I saw on the web, and then the second, and then the chat, they all hit me the same way. This is an alien machine. And that if we knew the truth, that for centuries, thousands, millions of years, that we have been dealing with what Michio Kaku would call civilization 3s and 4s.
Right.
It can go to various solar systems in the beginning, can seed life. That is an old concept now, panspermia.
Right.
Deliberately seeded DNA, and have, I'm going to say, creature machines. I'm thinking of the praying mantis because this comes up so much in the human abduction syndrome. So thinking of the praying mantis and how many abductees have said, it is so ancient, it's staring at me, it knows everything about me, it knows everything about this planet, it knows everything about this solar system. This is something that has a job to monitor the evolution of life in this solar system. Well, this solar system is 4.5 billion years old. We can't even begin to wrap our minds around the concept of anything that in what we call time, linear time on Earth, could be some kind of a conscious entity that could be 4.5 billion years old, and its job was to monitor and seed solar systems, and yet that concept comes up. And it may be that the people in the human abduction syndrome get the impressions telepathically, and maybe what is missing in the equation is these praying mantises may be exactly that, seeders and monitors, but that they go in and out of timelines, that they go in and out of the speed of light, so that they are actually moving timelines, they are actually moving dimensions, and that's how the words now become very difficult to say, but Interstellar did a very good job on this.
Yeah, what is so hard what is so hard to grasp about that? What is so foreign to us? Linda, something 1 billion years older than us, 1 billion years, 10,000 years smarter than us. What do you think they're doing? Number one. Number two, 10,000 years from now, 1,000 years from now here on planet Earth, what do you think we're going to be doing? Why is it such a hard concept to grasp and wrap your mind around? I just don't get it. We need more of you is what we need.
Well, I think we should all be having these discussions on the 6 o'clock news. I think this is the most exciting thing about this huge cosmos that we are in, and that we have had touches of other life and intelligences that may have their own survival problems. That is a big part of the subject in a lot of the human abduction stories, and it certainly comes up in animal mutilations, that some may have other agendas, but that a lot of this may have to do with survival. Their survival, our survival. We're in a universe in which the planets that you can live on and survive and thrive and evolve may be few and far between in terms of the perfect Goldilocks, although right now, after all of the headlines in just the last 12 months about the increasing number of Goldilocks planets, meaning not too cold, not too hot, just right. If there are that many, as is being reported, well, there might be life all over the place, and we are in the century, and I find this exciting. We are in the century when all of this might crack open, and we will get past being on a concocted planet, and we will be where we are all more on the same square of looking back and saying, okay, this history was concocted. Let's start with the truth and our relationship with the universe, and let's go forward now, learning and meeting what else is out there. And if the governments have something that they're seriously worried about as some kind of a threat, I think when humans know the truth, I think we are stronger, not weaker.
One last question, and this is a fun one. This is from Dennis. He says, does Linda still spread out her reference papers around her in a circle on the floor, and is she sitting on the floor right now?
Well, you know, I do and I don't. When I'm doing, let's say, 3 hours of coast, I have each half hour is in stacks now. So I have 4 stacks, and I go through each stack, and they're in a line, and so it's one line of stacks. All right, that's that. But to do this work all of the time, you just can't imagine. Every house I've ever been has been like this. I have papers because I like to look at things chronologically. I like to look at timelines, and whether you're going back 5,000 years up to the present or you're looking at a decade, I have to use the living room, the kitchen, halls, stairs, and I do things chronologically so I can get them in order, and it takes a lot of space. So it's gone from all of the rings around me when I was doing Coast to Coast and Dreamland with Art Bell to long lines of historic research and long stacks when I'm doing radio.
I can just picture it, but I've seen your house in video. It's very clean and organized and very contemporary. Are you saying that's done for the cameras then?
No, because you're not looking at the floors. Okay. The floors are usually covered with stacks of paper.
Oh, that's great. You know what? I got to get this in. This is from Jeffrey, a friend of mine. He wants to know what you feel about Podesta's tweet.
I think it was one of the most fascinating political statements of all of 2014 to 2015. And the fact that John Podesta has been for at least, going back to 2007, I think it was, that he was making statements that clearly he was trying to get somebody politically to state. In fact, what I'm doing right now, because I think it's important enough, and I have it right here, it's on my Earth Files headlines page, and it is about the Podesta. Here it is. John Podesta. It's at Podesta44. That was his tweet. It was February 13th, 2015. He says, finally, my biggest failure of 2014, once again, not securing the disclosure of the UFO files. Hashtag the truth is still out there, and he copied this tweet to the New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd. Well, when you go back, it was 2002, John Podesta, the same John Podesta who is going to be named Hillary Clinton's campaign manager for her second run for the president, same guy. In 2002, at a press conference that was organized by the Coalition for Freedom of Information, he said, quote, John Podesta, "It's time to find out what the truth really is that's out there. We ought to do it really because it's right. We ought to do it, quite frankly, because the American people can handle the truth. And we ought to do it because it's the law," close quote. In a country formed of, by, and for the people with a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, for 60 years to be denied the truth about other life in the universe coming and going here, I can understand why he said the law should give all Americans the truth.
Thank you so much, Linda. Always a pleasure. Like I said, next time around, we'll just instead of doing the show, we'll stream one of our phone conversations, and we can take the night off. We can go out to dinner, and we'll just do it that way.
We'll talk about the Dragonfly drone.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you. It's a privilege, and God bless everybody.
Thank you so much, Linda. Contact in the Desert, May 29th through the 31st. We're going to be hanging out. Come out and see Linda and hang out with us all. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Linda Moulton Howe, everybody. Thank you so much. I got to say, she hung out to the bitter end tonight. Thank you so much, Linda. And with that, I got to take two. Let me take two. I'll be back because I got to go number one. I'll be back right after this. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network, March 9th. Don't forget, KGRA in the house. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you, Linda. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
JimmyChurchRadio.com. Jimmy Church. My name is Alan, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com. Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio, the revolution.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Thank you, Linda Moulton Howe. Thank you, everybody listening all around the world. Thank you, Fadernauts, everybody across the United States, everybody that's out there freezing tonight. You stayed in and stayed warm. I think we got close to 1,000 in Spreaker tonight in the chat room over on Spreaker. Twitter tonight, unbelievable. Thank you, everybody. And again, Linda Moulton Howe. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, Nick Pope will be joining us. The one and only Nick. What a great week here on Fade to Black. And then on Thursday night, Dr. Robert Davis will be with us. Fader night / Dr. Robert Davis. Last night, Buff Perry. What a night. And we did the big announcement last night with KGRA. What a crazy week, a wonderful week that we have spent with all of you Fadernauts. Thank you so much. And if you want to become a Fadernaut, just go over to faders.org, www.faders.org. Get vetted, become a friend, become part of the family, and you will become a Fadernaut. And get your Fader gear, too, by the way. Get your coffee cups. I'm going to get a bunch in here in the studio. We'll get those clanking and start giving those away, too, as well. All right? So, everybody, Be safe. Tomorrow night, Nick Pope will be joining us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I do want to thank Linda Moulton Howe for another wonderful evening. Fade to Black is produced by executive producers Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Viteau, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Method of Signaling. Music is Doug Aldridge. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black happens every night with the help of so many wonderful people. I want to thank all of you. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Tomorrow night, Nick Pope. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I want everybody to be safe. See ya.